Okay, so let's start with some basics of machine learning, because now we have seen how to represent our signals, how to formulate the space. Now let us see how do we, or what to learn from the space, how to learn from the space. We discussed in the first class that what is machine learning. In machine learning, you have a model which you want to train so that it maps your input to desired output. What's my input? My input is any signal. What's the output? I have to choose that, right? What do I want to do with that signal? So I have to design my inputs carefully, the feature extraction part, the outputs carefully, what I actually want, and then I have to train my model. I have to train it in such a way that it is efficiently trained. We'll discuss in more details what do we mean by training. It means that it generalizes well over unseen cases. It is not that it will, okay, I'll give more examples later. So, okay, let's start with an example of machine learning. This example is of classification. You want to classify 3 flowers: roses, lotuses, and what are these called? Jasmines. Okay, so you have got flowers, and you want to automatically, you want your machine to tell which flower it is. Is it a rose, it is a jasmine, or is it a lotus? Right? How can I do it? Okay, I can work with image features and do some complicated stuff, which is nice but little more consuming more effort. Can I make it a little more simpler? Okay, I can extract some nice features. Can I work with just their height and diameter? Just get a flower, or you have a machine which will just give you height and diameter of the flower, right? This is a hypothetical example, but it makes much more sense, right? It is because I'm trying to project a very complicated class into just 2 dimensions, height and diameter, and then we will see in these 2 dimensions how we can visualize so many things very easily. Okay, so let's start from this example. Let us say I have taken 2 flowers now, rose and so what was on my x1? Okay, height is on my x1. So roses are a little short and they are wider, right, than lotuses. Lotuses are longer but narrower. So these are my rose examples. So how do I get this plot? I will take one rose, measure its height and width or the diameter. My x1 is the height, so I get a value of height. Then I look at the value of width. I put a pointer there, a point there. This is my height and this is my width. Let me also write it down here so that. So I have got 2 classes. Let's say this is my height, which is x1, my width or diameter, and my desired y. So what do I get here? My height is, let us say, 5.1, and my width is 2.2. What should be, oh, I'm sorry, this is my pen. Okay. Sorry. Sorry. Yeah, so what do I do now? My height is 5.1, width is 2.2, and I see which flower it is. It is a lotus. This is what I get. I am looking at the data and now preparing the data set. I got another flower. Let us say the height was 2.1. The width was 3.9. And I found out this is a rose. In this way, I keep on writing all these values and I plot them on this graph. Now, from this graph, I see a pattern emerging. What is that pattern? That pattern is that my roses are kind of clustered in this area. My lotuses are kind of clustered in this area. Means they are grouped in one location. This is very nice because this means I can do something interesting. I found a pattern in the data. Okay, now I'm given this unknown point. This point is unknown. Means somebody tells me, oh, I have got a flower which is this much height and this much width. Which flower it is? How can you tell? Take it back to your plot, put the mark there, and then you can get some sense. Okay, let us say when the mark is here, what will you say? It's a rose for sure. If the mark is here, it's a lotus for sure. Okay, but if the mark is here, okay, I'm not very sure. Looks like a rose, but maybe a lotus. It might be a lotus as well. Okay, so how do you do generally? How will you do it mathematically? Not by visually seeing it. Mathematically, how can you do it? If I give you these 10 samples of roses, 10 samples of lotuses, sample means an example. So I give you 10 examples of roses, 10 examples of lotuses, and I give you one unknown point. I ask you, which one is this? How will you tell? Okay, one very nice approach has come up. So, yeah, so you can find the center of this cluster, okay, somewhere here. Find the center of this cluster somewhere here, and then you see the distance from the center. Whichever is closer, you say it is that class. How many of you agree that this is a good approach? How many of you agree this is a good approach? Nobody. Maybe then you can suggest a better approach. If somebody has already done machine learning, please do not spoil the, what is it called? Spoil the show. So okay, so let others who have not done machine learning before, let them think intuitively. Let them come up with their ideas. So what will you do? Huh? What is that? Nearest neighbor. Very good. I think this is a very nice approach, that if I find an unknown point here, what will I do? What do I do when I go to some unknown place? I just ask my people around me, oh, what place is this? And they tell me, oh, this is Pakistan. That's okay. So this is how it goes. You ask the neighbors, what place is this? And they will answer you. And then you know it for sure. It is possible one person may cheat you, but then you ask more people. You ask 5 people around you. And hopefully majority will say the right thing, right? So in this way I can get a very good mathematical way to implement it on my computer. Just ask the neighbors. How do you find the neighbors? Using distance measure. So you have to go back to your definition of space, definition of distance metric, to find out the nearest neighbor or the nearest neighbors. Ask them, and then you know it for with high probability or with high likelihood you are, that is the class. Okay, so this is one approach which is very good, but it is computationally little expensive, right? Practically, when we are dealing with people, it is very easy to find out our neighbors, but when you have just a list of all the data, finding there which are the nearest neighbors, that becomes difficult task. Imagine you have millions of samples and you find 10 nearest neighbors. How will you do that? It is a difficult task. Maybe this can be one assignment, but this is a difficult task. So that's why we can look for some easier or computationally faster ways. So as some of you suggested, because you know from your past experience, you can construct a boundary, and instead of finding people around you and asking people, you can just, you know this one equation of the boundary, ask this equation of the boundary, where am I? So you know that the boundary, the equation is, straight line equation is y minus mx minus c is equal to 0. In this case, x2 minus mx1 minus c is equal to 0, right? And how do you know which side you are on? You know, you take an unknown point, let's say this point, put it into this equation, If you get a value equal to 0, which that will mean you are exactly on the boundary. And if it is greater than 0, it means you are on this side. And if you are, if this is less than, this whole thing is less than 0, you are on this side. Okay, a very quick question. In this example, what are M and C? It's positive, negative, 0. 3 options. What are M and C? M is positive and C is? Okay. So I think this was easy. M is positive. M is the slope of the line, which is positive, and C is the intercept on the y-axis or the x2 axis, which is negative in this case. And you can also find it from the equation. Okay, when your x2 is increasing, to stay on the same line, your x1 also must increase. So your M has to be positive, and likewise you can find C from any intercept, either this or this. Okay. Okay. So yes. So this is called hard classification. If I use this line, okay, let me ask this question. If you look at this point now, which side it is on? It is on which side? Rows. So you will say it is rows for sure, right? So if you say that, it is called a hard classification. You are assigning the value rows to this unknown point for sure. Means you are saying, okay, this is definitely a rows. But actually you know that this point is very close to your decision boundary. It could be a rows or it could be a lotus also. It looks like a rose, so there is more probability that this is a rose, but it could be a lotus as well. So that is called a soft classification. So you are not assigning that this is definitely red, but you are assigning, okay, this is red with a probability 0.6, and it could be blue with a probability 0.7. This is your confidence in the value. I am 60% confident this is a rose, but 40% I think this might be a lotus as well. Is this a good measure? This is more informative, right? Because then you can raise an alarm. Okay, my dear sir, I think machine will say, I am not very sure. Better you look at this example more carefully, right? So this is how, this is the meaning of soft classification. Okay, so we discussed this theoretically. How do you do it practically with mathematics? Mathematically, how do you do soft classification? So you found out that when x2 minus mx1 minus c is greater than 0, if you say this is a rose, a red, then that is a hard classification. But how do you do soft classification? How do you get these numbers now from this value, x2 minus mx1 minus c? Yes, one good approach is you find the perpendicular distance from the line, and then you have to make a function like this. To make a function, okay, if the distance is 0, I am very unsure, or let's say my uncertainty is 1, and as it goes further away from 0, I am more and more sure. This is the uncertainty. Or you can also say your confidence level goes up to 1 or 100% confidence starting from 0 if this is 0. Oh sorry, this is the value of x2 minus mx1 minus c, right? Okay, how can we do it mathematically? So this function is used, 1 upon 1 plus exponential of minus h, where h is x2 minus mx1 minus c. So technically this is called a sigmoid function. A sigmoid function does the thing. So let us see look at some examples. When h is 0, what is the value of p? When h is 0, okay, it is 1 upon 1 plus 1, which is half. Which means I am completely uncertain. It could be a rose or it could be a lotus, and my chances are 50-50%. Okay. When H is very large, let us say of the order of 100, what is P? Huh? Yeah, 1 upon 1 plus almost 0, right? E to the power minus 100 is almost 0. This is approximately equal to 1. Means you are very sure that this is a red class or the rose class. If it is approximately minus 100, what is your P? 1 upon 1 plus some very large value. So this is like very, very large. So this will be approximately equal to 0. Which means if you are in the negative side, then you say I am very sure this is not a rose, which means it's a lotus. So is this point clear? If this is clear, let me, okay. So this something can be added.
How will we know MNC?
Good question. We'll discuss that. The whole course is about this. How to determine MNC. Very kind of in the best possible way. So not just MNC, this is a line, so we have just MNC. If we get more complicated models, then we will have more parameters. How to estimate them efficiently and effectively, so that will be discussed in this course. Okay, so assuming that we know MNC, now let us see. Now I want to see, so if I plot this, I will get something. This is 0. When it is very small, it is something this. So if it is very large, it asymptotically approaches 1. So this on the x-axis is H, on the y-axis is sigmoidal of H. Fine. So this is how it looks like. Let us say I want to make it narrower. I want to make it something like this. Oh, sorry, my pen is properly. How do I do that? Which means even if the point is little far, I want to say I'm more confident that this is this class. Let's say the rose class. So I'm reducing the width of my uncertainty. How will I do that? What change should I make to my sigmoid function so that I can reduce the width of my uncertainty? Huh? Yes, very good answer. So I will use a constant here. Let's say AH. And what this A will do, if my A is larger than 1, then it will shrink the width. If it is smaller than 1, it will increase the width, right? Okay. This was an important point. Maybe you will come to know this when you do actual machine learning. Okay, now a more complicated example. How will you classify this one? Where should I draw my line now? I'm only talking about linear classifiers for the time being. Linear means just with one line you want to classify. How will you draw a line? Okay, I will draw something. How about this? This is the best possible thing I can get, right? I cannot get better than this. There are 10 points, 10 red points, 2 red points are misclassified, and 2 blue points are misclassified. So the accuracy is 80%, right? Is this a good classifier? So my accuracy or my kind of rate of mistakes on the red class is 20%. Rate of mistakes on the blue class is also 20%. So it's very nice, right? I can, how many of you think this is a good classifier and you are satisfied with this? Means you are making equal number of mistakes in detecting roses and lotuses. Is out of 100 lotuses, 20 lotuses you are misclassifying as rose, and similarly 20 roses you are misclassifying as lotuses. How many of you think this is a good approach? Means this is the best you can get, or can you get better? Okay, you cannot get better because this is not linearly separable data. For roses versus lotuses, this is the best we can get. But not always. What about another problem? Let's say fraud detection. Let's say this is the data of whether your credit card is genuine or not. Means basically giving access to your sensitive information, let's say your bank account, to make transactions. If you say, okay, 20% of the times you say, 20% of the times you can say some fraud person can come and withdraw money from your account, and 20% of the times you will not be able to withdraw money from your own account. That is the best you can get, right? But this is not acceptable because you do not want any fraudulent person to be able to access your card. So what you will do, you will shift the line, like from here, you will shift it so that all the red points, all the fraud points are correctly classified at the cost of your inconvenience. Means, okay, even if you have to go 40% of the times, you have to go to the bank to make the transaction, that is inconvenient, but still you are sure that your account is safe. So this example shows an importance of choosing your evaluation matrix very carefully. Given your task, if you just look at the accuracy, that is not sufficient, and that is a very bad way. To be able to do something meaningful in real life, you have to take into account how do you evaluate your model. So in this case, you do not want a fraud person to get access to your account. Okay. Okay, then a better approach always is a nonlinear approach, because with a nonlinear approach you can better separate these two classes. So that's why neural networks are popular, because they are nonlinear in nature. Okay, then maybe this part we can discuss in the next class. Thank you. And regarding the assignments, please, okay, so today Ravi will email you the groups. Groups basically the TAs assigned to you, so you can approach your respective TAs for help. Also, use Piazza frequently, use Piazza more, depend on Piazza, ask your questions on Piazza. Do not hesitate in asking questions. Thank you.